Hi. Do you enjoy masturbation? Do you love to masturbate? Do you find refuge? Do you seek solace? Do you seek pleasure in masturbation? How is your life? How are you doing? Why do you masturbate? Have you ever asked this of yourself? Let's explore this together and see why you're doing that. Our brains are wired in a very specific way, and due to our innate conditioning, and what I mean by that is us automatically pursuing and seeking pleasure when we are in a state of pain, especially in modern era, when pleasure is so readily available with just a phone, a click, and when we're connected to the entire world, it is so easy to seek and get pleasure, validation, approval, and attention. And attention is the currency of love. So why do we then masturbate, and how is that related to masturbation? Without going into too many details, at least not for now, into the biochemical and hormonal changes in the body as a consequence of pleasure, namely orgasm, we can assume and even conclude that doing that changes the feeling and the perception of reality. When we are in pain, we, instead of going deeper into that pain, resort to pleasure, to pleasurable acts, and all kinds of activities that make our life even more complicated. The example of this would be cheating in relationships. If we fight with our partners and we decide that instead of resolving the fight, we would find comfort or solace in the opposite sex, and thus engage in all kinds of malpractices, adultery, and things that would complicate our life, all under the guise of not feeling good with the person we are or in the situation that we are in. Pleasure is what we are ultimately seeking when we feel pain. Masturbation, in this aspect, plays an important role because it serves no other purpose than providing and giving pleasure as to counterbalance what is going on in our bodies and as a consequence in our minds. Since women are more prone to Since women are, due to their hormonal disbalances and biology, more prone to variable behavior or behavior that varies and mood shifts, they're of course as such more prone to having to resort to these kinds of devices, such as all kinds of devices you can think of that will give pleasure to women. And there are those for men too. However, when we use those, we lose the ability and the opportunity to form a connection with another human being, and therefore with ourselves more deeply. What we do instead is that we glorify masturbation and we glorify acts of giving pleasure to oneself through empowerment and through glorifying that act as something that is more sacred than going deeper into oneself and exploring on one's own and through one's own means what it means to be in pain and when pleasure is actually welcomed in our life. Because if we counterbalance pain with pleasure, that will be a perpetual game, since pain is going to accompany us through every aspect of our lives. Everything that we do in our lives will end eventually, as well as life itself. And no amount of pain that we feel around that can be taken away by masturbation, by pleasure. Having said that, please do not forget that each time you masturbate, especially if you're using porn and if you're using external stimuli that do not connect you to another human being, you are frying your brain and you are doing such a disservice to yourself by sending the signal to your brain that what you are doing is giving you pleasure, thus enforcing that kind of behavior and allowing yourself to continue that while telling yourself that that is the good thing to do. Because the neurological response in the brain is that this is good and this feels safe. But please don't forget that sexual acts and intimate acts do not necessarily need to be safe, because that is the very essence of exploration and being intimate with one another. We are pursuing safety, and we think that that is the ideal. But if we are safe within ourselves, that is what can allow for true exploration to happen and to allow ourselves to blossom in our own pursuit of what that pleasure pursuit hides. So when we pursue pleasure, when we want pleasure, there is something that propels us to do that. Therefore, if we want to explore what that is, and we are done with integrating that part of ourselves, then the pursuit of pleasure will be actually pleasurable and not just a temporary remedy to an ailment or to a situation or something bad that has happened. Almost the entire world as we know it is dependent on pleasure. And that can be seen in social media usage, instant gratification, one-night stands, quick fixes of interpersonal communication and sex, exchange of whichever, you name it. That doesn't make it good or bad, right or wrong. The question here is, what do you want for yourself in your life? And how long do you plan on continuing doing this, assuming that you are masturbating or doing whichever disservice you are to yourself? How do you see yourself 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 years from now? Do you see yourself doing that, or do you see yourself stopping that? And if you do see yourself stopping what you're doing, ask yourself, how long will it take you to do that? Because as I spoke in my previous video, good habits link good habits, and bad habits link bad habits. So if you are able to identify masturbation as a negative habit, which it essentially is, it doesn't have to be, it normally and essentially is, then it will be very easy for you to decondition yourself from that kind of behavior and to free yourself from the shackles of pleasure as a response to pain. Because, and it doesn't have to be only pain, of course, we can have all sorts of ailments that trouble us and that follow us. But how we resolve them is what matters, how we approach them and how deeply we go into them, getting to know ourselves rather than just pleasuring ourselves. Because that is not exploration of the self. Self-pleasure and giving oneself pleasure, unless we come with a clean slate and with a curious, religious, so to say, mind, then we will be able to explore that and truly experience pleasure with no attachment, with no desire to repeat it, because each time the pleasure will be new and it will be experienced anew. Having said that, it is entirely up to you whether and when you're going to change this. I'm sharing this as a man who has been masturbating himself, and the moment I stopped it, and I really made that change, because it was a clear-cut decision, hearing all these people talking about it, now myself included talking to you, and it did change my life completely. That small, seemingly small change changed everything. Just a little behavioral adjustment, which was for the benefit of my highest self, for my highest benefit. And indeed, it resulted in fantastic things, such as me being more confident around women, me not resulting in immediate gratification and pleasure, but actually facing the difficulties in my life and resolving the small problems that have the tendency to pile up and make life so complicated. Not to mention how you will no longer be dependent and addicted to porn. Because porn completely distorts the perception of the sexes, respectively, of each other. So when we look at porn, we see what we perceive to be idealized version of how people should interact and copulate with one another. But the reality is very opposite than that. Your relation with a person is unique to the two of you, and no one else can copy, mimic, or replace that. And that is the beauty of genuine human interaction and relationship. Masturbation usually follows porn. Don't forget, bad habits stick together. So if you're masturbating, you're likely to watch porn. If you're watching porn, you're very likely to be, for example, in an unhappy and unfulfilling relationship. If you're in an unfulfilling and unhappy relationship, you're likely to be manipulative. And you can take that thread and unfold it so large that it will completely leave you naked to explore and see yourself for who you are without distractions, without addictions. Because masturbation essentially is addiction. It is an addiction to pleasure as a response to pain. And it is a lot more than that. But I'm giving you a frame in which to operate so that you can explore this on yourselves and on your own. Because I did exactly that. And I'm sharing what I've learned, hoping that this will help you free yourself and have a genuinely beautiful experience with both yourself and another human being, lover, partner, you name it. Because then it will be genuine, it will be honest, and you will experience what genuine desire means. I hope this video helped. If you like it, please like it, share, subscribe, and stay tuned. I will make more. If you have suggestions on videos and what I should speak about related to these topics, because I think you can figure what my channel is about by now, please do so, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Ciao!